Namaskar. Welcome to new session. We are to commence on considering the Sampragnata Samadhi, that being the fruition, consequence of Vashikara, sagna, Vairagya. So, the topic is Sampragnat Samadhi. Basically, we have to understand the two terms Sampragnata and Samadhi. What is Sampragnata? Sampragnata is a process of Samprajnana. It is a grade of Jnana. Jnana is a grade of faultless knowledge. So Jnana is a term that is used in Adhyatma with a specific connotation, the spiritual knowledge, adhyatmic knowledge. So that's Jnana. All our Jnana that we refer to as knowledge is more often information and invariably partial, and then also perhaps with some faults, more often with faults, because our knowledge is never faultless. We can't claim that we have faultless knowledge whenever we have knowledge. So we have faulty knowledge, we have incomplete knowledge. We dare not claim that we have a complete knowledge of whatever knowledge we have. So there is incomplete knowledge, faulty knowledge, lopsided knowledge, wrong knowledge. So in worldly realm, for we mortals, this is how our jnana is. More often it is just information. It is information, it is perception, maybe it is cognition on empirical plane, or what we call as a realization. We have realizations also, we say. But these are all terms used on mortal plane, empirical plane. So jnana should be taken to mean as meaning faultless knowledge, that too knowledge in the realm of metaphysics, adhyatma, and not just worldly realm, not the knowledge of sensory objects, not the knowledge of mundane worldly objects, for which our knowledge is sufficient. Our knowledge of the rose is sufficient for us to claim that we have knowledge of rose. Now we can understand how shallow is our knowledge. We are not horticulturists. We have no knowledge of botany. We have no knowledge of biology. Yet we claim that we have knowledge of rose. Then we say we have knowledge of dog, cat, elephant, tiger, birds, animals, creatures, worms, insects. And then we totally overlook the fact that we do not have any knowledge of biological sciences if we are speaking about the life. We do not have zoological knowledge. So, yet we claim that I know dog, I know cat, I know elephant, I know this and that in the animal world, the birds and creatures and animals and beasts and cattle, etc. So see how we claim that we know. If we really know, how much do we really know? And then we will realize when we cannot really claim justifiably that we know, yet we claim I know. So this is our jnana. It is information. More often it is information. It's an information. We know that this is lion and this is elephant and this is eagle and that is cat and dog and whatever. Or maybe it is our perception we have seen. We have gone to zoo, we have gone to safari, and we have sighted lion, tiger, elephant, eagle, etc., etc. So we have sighted, we have a perception of it, and therefore we say, I know it. Having perception, it is not a basis to claim I have knowledge. Having cognition, perhaps we can claim to some extent that we have knowledge, but you can understand how insignificant is that, how insufficient is that, how incomplete is that. So, try to understand what is jnana. What is jnana for us? Where all we claim that we have jnana. Why do we claim that we have jnana? On what basis we claim that we have jnana? So that's about worldly knowledge, empirical knowledge, sensory objects and objects of human mind, and then we say, I have knowledge. So that's a jnana here is adhyatma jnana. The yogi doesn't go for samadhi to understand what is elephant, what is lion, and what is eagle, and what is a crow, and what is a cat and dog. Those are not samadhi objects. What can be seen, sighted, sensorily perceived is not a samadhi object. So this should be understood. So the samadhi objects are said to be vitarka, vichara, ananda, asmita. So let's not try to open it out right now. Let us try to understand at a little later point in time about what are the objects of samadhi. Samadhi is with respect to what object and what knowledge. Then jnana, superior to that, is called prajnana. Prajnana, prakarsit jnana. So jnana, prajnana, and samprajnana, samyak prakarsita jnana. So these are the grades of jnana. Jnana, prajnana, samprajnana. Jnana is knowledge, essential knowledge in the realm of metaphysics, not in the realm of worldly mundane things. Then prajnana, when that is exalted jnana. So by shravana, manana, etc., you will get exalted jnana. That is therefore called prakarsita jnana, prajnana. And then samyak jnana. Samyak means complete, faultless, all encompassing knowledge. Nothing is excluded. Complete. Absolutely complete. So these are grades of knowledge. And the one which gives samprajnana, the instrumentation of it is called samprajnata samadhi. This is how we can understand how the word samprajnata has come about in yoga. So that is samprajnata. Now what is samadhi? Now samadhi is naively understood as a process of higher faculty functions. So therefore, loosely the words of dharana, dhyan, samadhi are rendered as concentration, meditation and trance. Now, there is a major flaw in such renditions, the word. Dharana is not concentration, but it is deemed to be concentration. Dhyana is deemed to be meditation, and samadhi as trance. So, in our times, we will come across wrong translations of these words dharana, dhyan, samadhi as concentration, meditation, and trance. Trance is just trance. If you get trance in, say, listening to music, it is just a kind of bliss, ecstasy that you experience. It is not knowledge. We can get a kind of trance-like condition while listening to very melodious music, celestial music. We will get into a trance, perhaps. But that trance is not related to knowledge, and it's not a knowledge instrument. Whereas Samadhi is a knowledge instrument. Therefore, Samadhi is not trance. Dhyana is meditation in modern terminologies, and dharana is confinement, is concentration. Yoga is not speaking of concentration, because where do you concentrate? You will always concentrate in a sensory object. Now, where is the sensory object available as a locus when you have Vashikara, sagn, Vairagya, or when you have Vairagya? When you have Vairagya, you are getting away from sensory objects. Now, when you have got away from sensory objects, where is the scope or chance of getting concentration? Concentration is a sensory act. And therefore, that is also a wrong word that has come in vogue and popularized the dharana of yoga as concentration. If there is concentration, that means you are having sensory attachment. You are having a sensory object. You have a disposition for sensory objects, and therefore you are concentrating. Now, you are not supposed to have this attachment to sensory objects in Vairagya. So, therefore, we should do away with these ideas about concentration, meditation, trance as dharana, dhyan, samadhi of yoga. So, what is samadhi? Samadhi is a means of knowledge where empirical process of knowledge doesn't work. If it works, it very scantily works. And therefore, we need to have a higher faculty function in the realm of yoga, not in the realm of empiricism. Now, if you recall, during Vairagya, we often spoke about Vishaya Vitrushna. Vishaya Vitrushna, that thirst for Vishayas, which are Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, Manasika, Bhavanika, Bauddhik Vishayas. These are 8 types of Vishayas that we have. 5 of the 5 senses, 6th of the mind, 7th of Bhavana, emotions, and 8th of intelligence, Buddhi. The empiricism only circumscribes these objects. Now, if you recall, in Vairagya, we were told that it is not giving up thirst. It is having higher thirst. Lower thirst has to be replaced, will be done away with by having higher thirst. Param drashtva nivartante. So, Vishaya Vitrushna is replaced by Tattva Trushna. Vishaya Trushna, thirst for objects, is replaced by Tattva Trushna. There must be a thirst, if you recall. Sometimes back we had come to this point that we cannot be thirstless, and that is meaningless life. If you have no thirst for anything, then that is a meaningless life. It has no radars. It has no direction. We must have thirst. Thirst for what? Something that is higher, something that is superior, something that is transcendent, something that is transworldly, something that is transpersonal, something that is transobjective. That is tattva. So, samprajnat yogi has thirst for tattvas. Tattvas means metaphysical principles. Which are these metaphysical principles? These are metaphysical principles of vitarka, vichara, ananda, asmita, into which we are going to look at a little later point in time. So, now the yogi, after this Vairagya, evolved up to Vashikara plane and corresponding plane of ability to be steady, the chitta qualifies for thirst for tattvas, metaphysical principles, buddhi tattva, ahankara tattva, panchamahabhuta tattvas, panchatanmatra tattvas. So various, these are metaphysical principles. So the thirst is there. It's not that there is no thirst. It is not thirstlessness in Vashikara, Sagna, Vairagya. It is dushtanushavika vishay vitrushna. Dushtanushavika vishay vitrushna. It is vishay vitrushna, not tattva vitrushna. If there is tattva vitrushna, then you do not have pursuit in spiritual life. You must have thirst for transcendent principles, higher principles, metaphysical principles. If that too is not there, then you are nowhere. If you have lost the thirst for objects, you have lost the thirst for even principles, and you are absolutely thirstless, then that is hyponeurosis, if I may say so. And that is not a condition that human being cherishes, hyponeurosis. So there is tattva trushna, there is thirst, but thirst for not vishayas but tattvas, not objects but principles. So naturally what happens? The chitta is inclined towards the principles. Just as our chitta, our mind is inclined towards going after objects, going in search of objects, hunting the objects, searching the objects, getting the objects, consuming the objects, getting gratification by objects. So we know our gravities. Now for a yogi who has Vashikara Sagna Vairagya and corresponding abhyasa component developed, there is thirst for tattvas. And therefore, the object of knowledge will be with reference to these tattvas, these principles, which are called vitarka, vichara, ananda, asmita. So those are Samadhi objects. The sensory objects are not Samadhi objects. But the metaphysics in sensory objects will be object of Samadhi, because there is metaphysics in every object. If you recall that example of mango, which was taken into consideration, tell me which object has no metaphysics? There is always a metaphysics behind any object, howsoever gross, howsoever disgusting object or bewitching object, liked or disliked object, loathed or loved object. Metaphysics is invariably there. Because you can certainly go to the plane of subatomic particles in an object. Any object, tangible object, will ultimately be taking you towards particle physics of it. So from sensory physics, you will go to particle physics. In particle physics, you will come across something which is on the threshold of metaphysics. And then beyond lies the metaphysics. The point is, the rose, lion, elephant, etc., dog, cat, eagle, these objects have metaphysics at the core of their existence. So therefore, that will become object of support in samprajnat samadhi. So metaphysics is all pervasive. There is no object, no thing in the world devoid of any metaphysics. Where is the metaphysics? It is at the core of its existence. So, Samadhi supports our metaphysical supports. This has to be understood. Now, how is this Samadhi process? Now, when we concentrate on something that is nominal, because metaphysical principles are nominal. Can you say that you are concentrating on neutron? Can you say that you are concentrating on proton or electron? Now, these are invisible. These are invisible objects for our eyes. We will not be able to sight them. That's why there is something called an electron microscope. And these metaphysical objects are nominal. Howsoever gross, they are not phenomenal. They are certainly not tangible. You can never see them through your senses. You can never even see them through your naked intelligence. Like we have limitations to naked eye perception, naked ear audition. We need some scopes, we need some mechanical devices to escalate the power of eyes to see, power of ears to hear, etc. So also for mind, intellect, emotions, in their naked conditions, they will not be able to take support of metaphysical objects. They need some scopes. And yoga offers that. Yoga gives that. Samadhi gives that. Anyway, the Samadhi is a process to have knowledge. Now, this knowledge will not be information. And this knowledge is always by way of transformation. You will not know metaphysical objects objectively. You will not realize them objectively that this is me, this is my intellect, this is my chitta and this is prithvi tattva. This is chitta and this is ap tattva. This is chitta and this is ahankar tattva. This is chitta and this is buddhi tattva. No. It cannot be an object like that, which happens in empirical realm. That this is my mind, this is a book, and therefore I know the book. This is me and this is flower, therefore I know the flower. I don't have to become flower to know flower. I know flower by not becoming flower. I know a book without becoming the book. So there is no case of becoming in empirical plane. It is only knowledge. It is only getting a reflection. Perception and apperception. That's how we get our knowledge. So when you say, I know this book, you don't become that book. You have never become that book. You don't expect to become that book, but you know the book. Because you know the contents of the book. You perhaps comprehend complete contents of the book. Therefore you say, I know this book. I have understood this book. You only understand. When it comes to objective world, you will only understand the objects. But Samadhi means transformation. So when it is knowledge in the realm of metaphysics, you need to become that. Your chitta needs to become that. It needs to transform into that. That's why, our knowledge is quite limited. Many times you come across people telling you, you should have been in my place, then you would have known what is my state. So not being in the place of that person, we will never understand that person thoroughly. That's why we say, you should be in my place, you should be me, then you will know what happens to me. You are you, and therefore you will not understand what happens to me. So you should be in my place, you should take my place. And that's why we always say that nobody understands me, because to understand me, they should take my place. They should come in my place. They should take my place. They should become me, and then only they will know me, what really I experience and undergo. So there also we have this expression that you will not know really what I undergo unless you come in my place, unless you become me. Only when you become me, you will get to have my experience. Not becoming me, you will never get my experience. You will get your experience. And your experience will be never my experience. You will have to become me. So even in a worldly realm, in our expressions, we do have this kind of expression that you must become me to understand what I really undergo, what I experience. So then that means we also infer that there has to be a transformation. You should become me for experiencing what I experience. You can't remain you and then yet get what I experience. You will never get it. So in metaphysics, that is really the case, that chitta becomes that. Chitta becomes that. Then only then there is samadhi realization or samprajnana will take place. It is not objective samprajnana. You will never know objectively samprajnana by this is prithvi tattva, this is ap tattva, this is teja tattva, this is ap tattva, this is akash tattva, this is ahankar tattva, this is buddhi tattva, this is pradhan tattva, this is atma tattva, this is purusha tattva. No, you will never know like that. There is becoming. Samadhi is becoming. The chitta becomes. That is the unusual process in intuitive mysticism. That's called Saksatakara. Saksatakara means to actually take the akara, actually take the form of it. So you have to take the form of the object, then that will be Saksatakara. Then that will be Samadhi cognition. So there is becoming, it is transformation. So the proper words for dharana, dhyan, samadhi are dharana, confinement. The chitta should be getting confined to support. So that is confinement. And dhyana is just absorption. In dhyana, there is absorption. When you are reading a book and then somebody says, oh, he is absorbed, what does it mean? There is no distraction. You can't effect any distraction. He is so absorbed, thickly absorbed. So there is confinement and then absorption and then transformation. So these are the words for dharana, dhyan, samadhi, perhaps properly at our level of understanding it. If we understand little much more than this, maybe we'll have to have different connotations. We'll have to have different terminologies. Because the connotation will change. When you have a little bit better understanding, connotation will change. The connotation will change, denotation will change. So at this stage we can say dharana is confinement, dhyana is absorption, and samadhi is transformation. So in samadhi process there is becoming. Yogis chitta becomes that and not just knows it. And that knowledge you can understand what is the caliber. If I am really in your place and I get to know get your experience, then you will say, yes, you have what I have experienced. I need to become you. I need to transform me into you. So there is that transformation. Similarly here, there is transformation into the supportive principle. There is becoming in samadhi. So samadhi is becoming. So we have just tried to have preliminary understanding of word samprajnata samadhi. Now let's try to have little understanding of the samadhi process. Unless we have little understanding of samadhi process, we will not be able to have crystallization of that subject matter that we are we have embarked upon the Samprajnat Samadhi. So, in yogic process, how does it happen? What is the process? So, hear this intently, carefully. A yogi must embark upon a pranayam. Must embark upon pranayam. Without pranayam, there is no bypass. You can't say there is a bypass to pranayam and you are going to dharana, dhyan, samadhi. It is impossible. There is not even exceptionally possible. So there is a pranayam. So understand the starting point of samadhi, it is invariably at pranayam. Our pranayams don't lead into samadhi, but yogi's pranayam leads into samadhi. Our pranayam doesn't give us even visualization of samadhi as a probability. Whereas in case of a yogi, pranayam is directly linked with samadhi. So pranayam. So there is a gross pranayam which is shvasa prachvasa gati vichedaha according to Patanjali. So he deals with the in breath and out breath. And then gati vicheda. That is the pauses between in breath and out breath, pauses during in breath, out breath, pauses at the end of in breath and out breath, etc. Gati vicheda. Gati means momentum, and vicheda means to obstruct or divide, etc. Divisioning. So gross pranayam, and then it is pranayam, it's not just shvasayam. And then in pranayam, he takes recourse to omkar, because om is master key for any and every realization, revelation, transformation, becoming in samadhi process. So that's the master key, om. So om is incorporated into pranayamic act. Now, how does the samadhi process occur? We naively think that there is object decided, and then the yogi tries to concentrate on all that support, and then goes on towards escalating towards dhyana and samadhi. No, yogi doesn't decide on object as to which object on which I should have samadhi. He doesn't decide on objects such as atma, paramatma, prakriti, pradhana, mahat, ahankar, tanmatra, panchamabhuta, etc., etc. He doesn't decide. Because by pranayam, his mind becomes desireless, idea-less, desireless. But even if there is a intent in the beginning, it will be obliterated by course of pranayam. The pranayam will obliterate his intent. Pranayam will commence with an intent, but pranayam effaces any intent. That's the magic of pranayam. Then how does the support appear? So understand this mysticism here, very interesting mysticism here, that just as a dream object appears in your mind while you are fast asleep, there are particular kinds of dreams, if not all kinds of dreams, because you might sleep with an obsession and then it might come back. But even in that case, you will go to a dreamless sleep and the dream will come up. You will go to sleep and dream will come up. So how does the dream object appear in the mind? What is the material of it? Your material of swapna or dream is your own mind. And from that mind appears the garden, appears a tree, appears a mountain, appears an elephant, appears a bird, appears a person, appear things. So they all appear out of that material cause, which is our mind. So dreams come in our mind. Our mind sees the dream, but the dream itself is outcome of mind. Mind itself becomes the dream object. And see the interesting thing. Mind itself becomes dream object and the mind itself sees the dream. So try to understand the dichotomy. Who sees the dream? You say, I saw the dream. What was in the dream? You say, perhaps a mountain in the dream. The mountain was of what material? The mountain is of mind material. So the mind itself becomes mountain and the mind itself sees the mountain. So that's the dichotomy, that's the division of the mind. One mind becomes and the other mind sees it, witnesses it. So understand this mysticism in dreams. Material of dream is always our mind stuff. The dream object might be anything, living, non-living, white, black, solid, liquid, gaseous, any kind of matter. But the material of the matter is our mind stuff. So the mind itself becomes the dream and the other part of the mind will be seeing the dream. So understand this quite intriguing thing about dream. The point is, dream objects appear in the mind, they are of the mind. Material of them is mind and they also appear in the mind itself. Mind doesn't project object on your eyes. Eyes will be not the physical eyes, but mental eyes will be seeing the dream. It is not these eyes, visual organs, which see the dream. It is mental eye, EYE, will be seeing the dream. You don't have to open the eyes to see the dream. You don't open your eyes to see the dream. And they are not really visual objects or objects of visual organ, but they are visual objects of the mind. So somewhere try to understand this dream phenomenon with a thought process. The point is that as a dream object appears on the mind, the omified chitta, Om is taken recourse to in pranayam, which results into pratyahar. So all the objects of the senses are taken away from their senses and there is disjunction of the senses with the sensory objects. So therefore there won't be sensory object for samadhi because there is disjunction due to pratyahar. And the vairagya, which is inherently there in pratyahar. So the chitta is now omified. There is omification of chitta, of a yogi. And in that chitta, samadhi object appears, like dream objects appear. And in dream, we see the objects. In samadhi, yogi becomes the support. In dream, when we see elephant, we don't become elephant. We see elephant, we experience elephant. Although the elephant has come out of our mind, our witnessing mind has separated itself. It is divided. Mind is divided into objective mind and subjective mind. Objective mind has become elephant, but the subjective mind has remained as a witness. So there is a division of the mind. The mind is divided to become dream object and dream witnessing. Whereas here, samadhi objects comes from the chitta itself. But there is no division of the chitta like it happens in dream, that there is a seer chitta and seen chitta. So the chitta becomes the dream object. In samadhi, the samadhi object becomes the chitta becomes the samadhi object. In dream, our mind doesn't become dream object. Our mind sees the dream object. Mind sees the dream, mind experiences the dream. This is the difference between dream and Samadhi, but also non-difference between dream and Samadhi, that like dream object appear in the mind, Samadhi objects also appear in the mind. But in Samadhi, the mind is one single piece and not divided like it happens in dream. Seer of the dream and scene of the dream. So these are divisions of one mind. While in Samadhi process, there is no division. That's the difference. So non-difference is that both appear in the mind. Both appear in mind stuff. Material of both is mind stuff. But dream mind is vasanamaya mind. And then Samadhi mind is omified mind. That's the difference. So the Samadhi objects appears out of Om. Om will fade in the object, metaphysical object, on which there has to be a Samadhi. And then the mind will get confined to the object, that support. So initially the mind will get the confinement. Now it is quite unique thing to understand this confinement. You see in the dream, you never say that I had a dream but was not concentrating on it. You will never have dearth of concentration in a dream experience. You will have complete concentration in dream experience. You will not have distractions. The dream might be disturbed. Somebody wakes you up, some thought, etc. The dream is disturbed. But your mind is not digradated in dream. You can't say there was a lack of concentration in my dream. The dream invariably has a concentration. That's another point to be noted. So here, the chitta will have confinement. It won't go here and there. Like the mind doesn't go here and there in dreams. In our awakeful state, the mind goes here and there. The mind is hardly focused. But in dream, we always have a very good focus, absolute focus. There is no lack of focus. There is no lack of arrestation of the mind. There is no digression while we are in dream. While we have a lot of digression in awakeful state experiences. In dream experiences, we don't have digressions. A point to be noted here. So similarly, there is confinement. The chitta gets confined. And then slowly it escalates in that confinement. That the chitta is ever flowing substance. The chitta is never static. The chitta is never steady. It is ever flowing like a river. You should recall chitta was compared to river in our earlier delineations. So then what is dhyana? Dhyana means outgoing cognition and incoming cognition are ditto identical. Outgoing frame of mind and incoming frame of mind have ditto content. There is no change in the content. That is called pratyaya ekatanata. Pratyaya ekatanata. Constant flow, steady flow, smooth flow. That flow is called dhyana. And then arthamatra nirbhasaha swarupa shunyam iva. One loses one's identity and one becomes that. Yogi's identity is lost. Now he is no more a yogi. He is support of the Samadhi. If support of the Samadhi is vitarka, he is vitarka. If the support of Samadhi is vichara, he is vichara. If support of Samadhi is panchamabhutas, he is panchamabhuta. He doesn't have his identity. His identity is lost as a yogi. He becomes that. Swarupa shunyam. Arthamatra nirbhasam. Artha is prithvi tattva. Artha is ap tattva. Panchamabhutas. Artha is tanmatra. He becomes that. That is transformation. So the point to be understood here is that Samadhi objects appear in omified mind by pranayam. Pranayam will settle the lake of consciousness. It will become steady. It will become transparent. And when it becomes transparent, like in a transparent body of water, you can see what is underlying it. You see the basin of a lake in a clear, crystal clear, transparent water and steady water. So that's what happens to Chitta. It becomes steady, it becomes transparent, and therefore underlying object is sighted. An underlying object becomes support. Now this underlying object could be vitarka support or vichara support or ananda support or asmita support. And then yogi's chitta will become that. So that is how Samadhi process is, which should be understood at the outset. Therefore, I made a slight attempt here to explain that out. The point is, Samadhi object is never decided. It is not premeditated process that I will have Samadhi on Atma Tattva, Prakriti Tattva, any metaphysical principle and then embarks upon it. No. The mind becomes desireless, objectless, gravity-less, transparent, steady. And then Om itself gives the support. So if you put a question, who really gives the object of Samadhi? According to mysticism, divinity decides on object of Samadhi, that yogi should have this Samadhi now. And therefore, just as dream, in particular class of dream, he is the giver of dream, which we will really consider later when we come to Swapna Jnanam at a later point in time. So there is a class of dream where the dream object is given by higher force, superior force, and sometimes very divinity. So Samadhi object is decided by Antaryami, the internal ruler. He decides as to what revelation the yogi should have, whether it is principle A or principle B or principle C or principle D or whatever. So divinity decides on objects. The divinity decides on object of Samadhi and yogi gets Samadhi there. Yogi doesn't decide on object of Samadhi. So these are some very primary things of which we should take note of. So with today's session, we were trying to understand Samprajnata word and Samadhi word. So I think for today, the session should be ending here. And let's proceed on this in our next session. Namaskar, all of you.